9 a.m. Let's go to Bell and Ross.
Hello.
Hello, Abdullah.
Nice to meet you,
Nice
finally.
To meet you. Nice to meet
Mr.
you.
Bruno.
Hello.
So, this has been a long journey. This is a journey driven by curiosity. I am here because I have questions. You have answers. So, let's go inside and talk about this.
Please. Here is the place where we introduce you to who we are, to our soul, to our brain, to our vision of the brand. When we were kids, we were fascinated by the tool watch, as simple as that. And we have been growing the steps. We were dreaming, of course, when you love aviation in France, you dream about Patrouille de France. And 30 years later, we serve them. And
Wow.
This is something that we are really happy because this is for us an achievement. We had a dream. We had a dream with Bruno when we were kids. And we have been surrounded by talents to achieve this dream. And this is something that I'm very grateful, because when you have a dream as a kid and you can, through your fight, to your devotion, to your courage, and to non-stopping redoing what you have in the mind, and surrounded by the people who help you, who give you the good hand because they know, because they complement your talent, because this is what I call the union of competence. And then you achieve your dream, because also it's a teamwork.
I think one time you did mention something like you have to create the rules, you have to master the rules before you learn how to break them.
What you learn from the watchmaking side is the rules of traditional watchmaking, because the beauty of watchmaking is also very traditional. As I was mentioning, when we started, a professional, first rule for a professional, two first rules: be precise, because no mistakes is possible; be readable at the first glance, like an instrument panel clock. I got the information I want immediately, and this is the reason why it's analog, because it goes to the brain like that. You know what is that?
That looks like a watch winder.
A rule breaker.
Okay.
Before breaking the rule, you must master them. This is a very special clock. 12 watches and the disc rotate, and each watch gives a different position. When it's the time, you can read it. When it's not the time, you can't.
So this is totally impractical.
Absolutely. Technically, it was not that easy, but it's to have a perspective, which is probably an artistic perspective, to say, yes, readability is key. In most of our watches, you read at the first glance, but sometimes you need to go outside of the box. And this is what we have achieved with the 12 o'clock. It was a very special edition. It's more a vision, a contemporary vision, an art vision of watchmaking. And this is where we go into modernity of the brand. We are able also to give a vision that didn't exist 1 century, 2 centuries ago, or even some years ago, because this is very modern and this is very different.
So here we are at the Paris After Sales Service Center for Bell & Ross. This is where we fix all the watches mainly from the Paris area, but also for some models we fix the watches that come from all around the world. Some specific models. Some are more complicated, also some need to be handled with specific equipment.
So what kind of watches are we talking about?
For example, we have dive watches that are filled with a transparent liquid.
So oil filled?
Yes, oil filled to handle the pressure. And these watches are can only be filled here in our service center.
Everybody can see aviation is a big part of Bell & Ross. Watchmaking, of course, we're talking about watches, but what do you mean when you say design? Because design can be anything. Design can be subjective. It can be simple or it can be very deep.
Words have a meaning. What is the meaning of design? What is the origin of the word design? It's not just to draw. The design originally has a meaning of purpose. You can create following the flow, just following other creations. Or you can have your own intention, your meaning, and you know where you want to go, and the way you want to go is probably different compared to the others. I remember Bruno, when he passed his graduation in design, he used 2 words, to be consistent and different. And I think this is what we have been at Bell & Ross since day one. To be consistent, you see it quite easily, and to be different. Round in a square with 4 screws. Why? Because the instrument panel clock is that. And our signature today is this message, which is different in terms of drawing, in terms of inspiration, in terms of where we are going, to be inspired by the professional word and to keep very consistently this meaning, whether you are in the plane, whether you are under the water, whether you are racing your car, or whether you are in the city, or going into the future with the futuristic approach with X5. We are consistent, but we are different. The way we take the design is absolutely not to follow the flow, but to create our own path.
Let's talk about the price spectrum. It's very rare to see a watch brand that has a watch that starts from $3,000-$4,000 and then have some crazy pieces, high complications going up to $500,000, especially at your scale. Why would you take that risk?
When you try to elevate, because it's one of the challenges in business life, it's not just elevate the price to have a number on the watch, but to elevate the technical aspect. When you have the freedom of price, you can inject in the product the highest grade in terms of material, in terms of movement, in terms of complication, in terms of craziness. As the technical possibilities today are huge, you can go very, very, very far. We should not limit ourselves to a price range. We should be free according the capacity of creation to elaborate most complicated products if it makes sense for us. Soul of Bell & Ross is a partnership between Bell and Ross. But it's more than that. The most important part is not the Bell, it's not the Ross, it's the N%. The union of competence. Union of competence between both of us, Bruno and myself, union competence between design, engineers, watchmakers, professional users. Therefore, when we have been lucky to meet technical genius who put us on board into the complexity, the beauty of watchmaking, whether you go into the simplicity of a jumping hour with Vincent Calabrese, who is the master of jumping hours. He has done one of the most beautiful jumping hours for Breguet, for Brantplan, for many great brands, because he is a master of jumping hours. Whether we go into the world of tourbillon, whether we go into the world of complexity of chronograph with monopush, the chrono, monopush, tourbillon, column wheel with a sapphire case. The materials, we have been experiencing the complexity of materials, the complexity of sapphire with colors. After we have been able to develop also crazy ideas like the skull combined with sapphire. All this makes us that we still keep our passion fresh, because I think it's important also not to limit ourselves, but to be able to do creations that surprises ourselves. For us, as a business, this is the cherry on the cake. We don't live on those crazy pieces. And therefore, we don't have any pressure to sell them. The only challenge is to be able to produce with the time, taking the time, the most incredible technical challenge that we had in mind with Bruno, and with the combination of expertise with the challenge, speaking with those crazy watchmakers.
I think it goes back to the fact that Bruno is designing a motorcycle, he's designing a concept car, he's designing an airplane. This is far beyond watchmaking. This is going into an artistic, taking an artistic approach instead of a commercial. There's definitely a commercial side, but the artistic side of Bell & Ross, that is something that really needs to be looked at and appreciated.
Bruno enjoys to be surprised by the power of innovation, even for himself. He doesn't want to be in a routine. And I think this creates emotion. 30 years after setting up the business, we still have emotion and we still keep the passion fresh.
Let's look at the watches now.
Since day one, we have been inspired by the panel clock, which is on the up and way, because we love aviation, we love professional watches. And when you are in the plane, the most important part of the plane is in the cockpit, the dashboard, where you have all the instruments to guide. When you're a pilot, you know where you want to go, you know the direction. In the center of this dashboard, there is the clock. And on those clocks, at one stage, we have always been inspired by this clock since day one, when we established the first Bell & Ross watches, when we were collaborating with Mr. Helmutsen. Before 2005, I challenged Bruno saying, what is the common aspect of all our watches? And we obviously arrived to the conclusion it was the dashboard and this clock in the cockpit. And I asked to Bruno, could you reproduce this clock and put it on my waist? We elaborate many prototypes, and then we arrived to this watch, the BO1. Quite big, 46 millimeter, much smaller than the big clock that you have in your cockpit. It was a big surprise in Basel. We didn't expect that it would become an icon and be so strong. I mean, for Bell & Ross, it would be so important, but it was different. Next year, we introduced the O3, which was 42 millimeters. The same, very similar design, but easy to wear for a question of ergonomy. Last year, we have evolved to some, because we think that an evolution of a product is key and restyling is key, so we have made the icon, the BO3, evolved just a little bit, 1 millimeter less, so 41 millimeter, and a lot of small details changing. We have also here the BRS, which is the smallest version, 39 millimeters. If you go out of the airplane and if you're in the city, you need to wear a watch that is different for the city. But we took the same inspiration, the round square with 4 screws, but instead of being just with a rubber band or with a leather band, we wanted to have integrated case with a metal strap. With all those shapes, that makes that it's more rounded. It's another angle to this iconic product. Immediately, we had a success with the 05, and I would say that it has become a major collection, being 50-50, sales-wise, business-wise. 2 years ago, we decided to go further and to drive, to work on the movement and to work with the philosophy that we have, which is the union of competence. Doing what? Combining what is inside the watch, having a manufacturing movement which is made by Kennedy for Bell & Ross with a 70-hour power reserve with an indicator on the dial, which is something quite special for them, with a large date window and with all the knowledge that brings Kennedy, which is COSC certification for precision and a 5 years warranty that we give to our client. But we combine that with the skills that we have and the skills of Bruno, which is a very interesting design, combining something very light, very resistant, and multi-material. The X5 has the capacity, by the layout of the construction, to be multi-component with carbon forgé, with ceramic, with steel, with titanium, with recently the LM3D that is luminescent and that is a bright idea because then you give shyness in the night, and it was introduced last year, and this is how we met. And the titanium version that is here, full titanium, that is incredibly light. This is titanium grade 2, so it makes it darker. And you have this very bohos line. It's a tool watch, very sober, no superfluous detail. So here, what I enjoy in this selection is that really you see the design aspect with a purpose, but being consistent and being different. When we introduced the 05, they were just the steel ones. And now we have introduced this year the ceramic version. Why ceramic? Because an instrument, the dashboard is black to avoid any refraction in the airplane, in the cockpit. And we have that for the 03 or the 01 or the S, the instrument line, and now we have it for the 05 line. Of course, the difference is that here it's only mattified, here it's polished and satinated, and you have this jerry aspect, whether it is with the classical dial or with the skeletonized execution that I'm wearing here on my waist. With ceramic, it's inside the material. It means that it's not scratchable, and the black aspect you cannot remove because it's in the material that you have this black. This is the base, the starting point of the introduction of Bell & Ross. But after, I'm the same as everyone. I can enjoy during the summer to go with fancy colors, with light blue, with green, different colors. I enjoy being black and white, but I think that I need to also adapt to the environment. We have a different concept. It's an abstract way of assembling different objects. I will give an illustration with 3 examples. First example, the world of aviation, the dashboard. We have been able to develop more than 14 different dashboard instruments that took the inspiration from what is inside the cockpit and to put it on the wrist. This is an example with 6 of them that we have been developing and that are different instruments that you find in the plane. And you immediately understand that whether it is the altimeter, whether it is the airspeed, whether it is the horizon, whether it is for the altitude, you have different instruments taken from the cockpit that you can wear directly on the wrist. The skull, the thematic of skull. I remember it was the year 2008, 2009. If you remember, there was a huge economical crisis with the Lehman Brothers collapse, with the crisis of the subprimes, and everybody was really frightened. And at that time, we had the inspiration of a military aspect. One of the symbols which is very important for militaries is the skull. Why? Because for them it is a sign that you have courage and that you're able to do your job, which is to confront death. In 2008, we achieved the first skull as a tribute to militaries, and it was immediately a crazy success. After that, we have done also some tributes, not only to the militaries, but it is a vanity, and it's the memento mori, remember what will happen to all of us. And you find that in the paintings, and we have developed some skulls with adornment, with jewelry pieces, with black diamond that were with the signage of skull. After we have done some automats that the skull, the head, the crossbone and the head, the mouth is opening and closing to have a laughing skull. And we have also developed some skulls with high-end complication or with incredible materials like the sapphire ones, like the latest, which is the ice blue sapphire with the automat inside. Everything is in sapphire, and this is a combination, in fact, of high-end watchmaking with concept watch. The third concept that I would like to illustrate is the luminescence, because we think that it's very important to be readable. It's one of our core principles at Bell & Ross. Day and night. For the night visibility, we have to use a luminescent material. For us, it has been a saga for 20 years. Last year, we have done something very special because it was the first time a watchmaker could introduce the luminescent aspect on a case. We have done a luminescent case with LM3D. This is something very innovative that we have introduced last year and that will have other steps going on.
And that's a very tough material. It's like carbon in terms of its lightness, in terms of its toughness, but it also feels very soft on the skin.
This also is something that you, when you work in aviation or when you work with automobile, you understand that to be tough, to be bold, to be strong, but to be very resistant is a good, very good combination. There are many bridges, there are many inspirations from the world of aviation or from the world of high complex automobile, because the way you operate is kind of similar. It's the size, the dimensions that are different. We are in micromechanics, they are in giant mechanics.
What is a perfect design for you?
Good question. What is a good design for me? The question of my professional life. My approach, my philosophy in design is first to serve my company, the strategy of my company, is to respect the identity of the brand. I have to find the watch that has its legitimacy on this very competitive market. Bell & Ross is one of the first brands to use the word vintage for its current collection. Now, I say that, but tu peux penser que tout le monde utilise le mot vintage qui est tombé dans le domaine public. But in 94, vintage was only for the patrimony catalogue. My ambition is to make trends. I don't want to be the follower because I know if I am a follower, I'm in danger. I told you that a good design is a good selling design, but there's a way to success in this market and in this approach is to create desirability, pleasure, the pleasure of discover a new watch, a new design, the pleasure of buying a Bell & Ross watch. What is important also is to be happy to do your design, to do your work. Because if you are not happy, the chance to design a good watch, a good selling watch is...
Walk us through your thought process when, or design process when you are coming up with these designs, because as we've discovered, this is not the beginning and the end of Bell & Ross. This is just the baseline. This is the template. But after this, you have done some very insane, very crazy pieces.
I always start with a dream, an image in my mind. Cette montre est un bon exemple de ce qu'on aime faire et ce qu'on est capable de faire. Le design de cette montre a commencé par une idée, celle de dessiner la version futuriste. This is the futuristic version of our iconic watch, the Black 03. L'idée était d'imaginer la version avant-gardiste futuristique de notre carré. Et l'inspiration, l'aviation, était celle des avions furtifs. In the Bell & Ross DNA, there's aviation. And what is the future of aviation? What is the avant-garde vision of aviation? It's the futuristic plane, like stealth planes. F-117, all those black faceted planes. The design of the Cyber 03 came from that. Oui, on a simplifié le volume de la boîte, on l'a fasté à l'image du fuselage de ces avions furtifs. Et donc, le résultat est original. C'est une pièce unique, originale, mais toujours dans les codes de Bell & Ross. Différence et cohérence. Un boîtier noir, un boîtier carré. Mais ici, un boîtier fasté, encore une fois à l'image de ces avions, avec un moteur, un contenu exceptionnel. Mouvement manufacture qui a été dessiné pour la boîte, ou la boîte dessinée pour le mouvement. Boîte et mouvement ne font qu'un. Et donc l'intérêt aussi d'un point de vue horloger du mouvement, c'est son squelettage fasté en 3 dimensions qui s'intègre parfaitement ou en parfaite harmonie avec le design de la boîte. Donc ça, c'est une montre qui met en avant, au fond, notre capacité créative. C'est une montre qui met en avant le savoir-faire de la marque à travers 2 choses, le design de la boîte et du mouvement, bien sûr, et la qualité horlogère du mouvement. There's 2 ways to design a new watch for us. There's the marketing way. starting from some marketing specification, commercial specification. Bruno, we need that. We need a new O3. We need a sophisticated version of the O3, a tourbillon. Okay, so in this way, the designer responds to a needs. The other way is the ID. ID coming from everything, everywhere, a new concept coming from the designer. And then the designer proposes its ID to the product committee. But in those two ways, the process is the same. You start with sketches, you start with, computer drawing, very precise, and then tu resserres les possibilités. So the field, you start with the 360 degrees field of possibilities and design, and then step after steps, you choose to get the unique answer, the unique watch. So you start with drawing, then 3D printing to choose and to have the response of your choice, but virtual choice on the computer, on your drawing, then it becomes real.
Then you start to touch and feel and see how comfortable it is.
Criteria, comfort, legibility, weight, all those essential criteria. And then you go to the real prototype in steel or titanium, made by our manufacturer, and then production. On every step, there are some questions, some answer, some good and some bad, and you have to choose.
You very much act like an industrial designer instead of a purely watch designer, because you've designed concept planes, you've designed motorcycles, you've designed concept cars. Why is that?
Because I need some inspiration, and sometimes you start with the watch and then you find the story, and sometimes you start it from the story to get the watch. And also designing a plane, designing a motorcycle, designing a GT car, it's a pleasure, and it's a way to show our design philosophy in other field, in other case than the watch case.
So you inspire yourself by designing more.
Yes.
And designing outside of just watchmaking.
I built the Bell & Ross world. I need that because I think a brand is not only a watch. A brand is a catalog, is a boutique, and could be for Bell & Ross a plane, a car. Your brain is made for that, like the sportif. You can run, but you also can swim, and you also can climb. So I need that.
Talk to me about the movements. When we look at some of the more conceptual pieces, like this one, the movement bridges, I think you mentioned about this, the movement bridges are very much part of the entire design of the watch. So how involved are you? Is this your design and you submit this design to the manufacturer to create this kind of movement? Do you work with the watchmakers?
I'm not a watchmaker. So as a designer, je coordonne, je travaille, it's a team work, union of competence. So la compétence horlogère est chez l'horloger. Donc, je travaille avec l'horloger, lui sur la technique, lui sur la fiabilité, sur la précision, et moi sur les aspects visuels, la forme. Function, form. Form follow function. So, as a designer, I'm working with the watchmaker to make his movement nice to see. Il y a des horlogers qui n'ont pas besoin de designers pour mettre en forme leur mouvement. Moi, je le fais en tant que designer de Bell & Ross pour que le mouvement soit cohérent, harmonieux avec le design de la boîte. Case, movement, same design, same philosophy.
Same
for
language.
the design, same language.
Yes. There's no future without reflecting on the past.
Absolutely right. If I want to connect the beginnings of Bell & Ross with the future, what's the link? Very easy. One word: passion. It's not the destination, it's the journey. To appreciate the journey, you need to have the passion and to keep it. And to keep it with talks, with people who appreciate, who share, who challenge. This is how you build the future. With more maturity, keeping the passion fresh, and being international. There is one quote that I really enjoy. It's a quote from Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do, by the things you do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, explore, dream, discover. Yeah, beautiful.
Perfect.
Beautiful program. Thank you.
Thank you.